This is Sunday, July 10th. There are 10 days until San Diego Comic-Con 2016. Welcome to SDConCast, the official podcast of the San Diego Comic-Con unofficial blog.
VANUHTEE go. Oh my god, I love LiveJournal, and my LiveJournal loves me. Current. It's the final countdown! The final countdown!
Good afternoon. I am your host, James Riley. Joining me on the podcast today, Kerry Dixon.
Hey.
Kerry,
Hey, everybody.
and Kim Twombly.
Hi, everyone.
I had no nicknames for everyone. We've been too busy for that kind of thing. No goofing off with it today. None.
Absolutely
Okay.
sad.
Yeah, it is sad. So, I guess what we're going to do is we're going to go over the schedule, right?
Yeah, I do believe that is kind of the big news going on right now.
All right, so for those who don't know, actually, let's start with this first. If you have questions while we're going over the schedule, you can use the Google Plus Q&A feature, the app.
Which is the easiest way.
It is, because we see it right there where we're watching ourselves. You can also tweet us at SD_comic_con, or use the hashtag SDConCast. I have those up, and I'm watching them, but I may not see everything, so the Q&A feature is definitely the best if you can use that. We will answer as we go through the show, and also we will answer some questions at the very end, mainly about the schedule. We may answer something else, but we really are just concentrating on the schedule for this podcast.
But we'll say this again at the end, but if you do have other questions, we will have one more regular podcast after the show. Join us Thursday of this week at the same usual times, where we will be answering any last-minute questions you have and talking about any last-minute news. So, there you go.
Okay. So let's get right into it. We're going to cover Saturday and Sunday, and we are going to start off with Hall H, the big room on the big day.
Well, then kick us off, James.
Yep. Okay, so we are starting off a little later than usual at 11:30 with the Warner Brothers Pictures presentation featuring a sneak peek of upcoming releases. And actually, we know some of what's coming because Warner Brothers has released a decent amount of information. We know that Suicide Squad is coming, Fantastic Beasts.
And we know that because David Yates specifically said they're coming to the convention and they're bringing footage.
Right. Lego Batman is showing up.
We're assuming because Will Arnett's in town, and
what else? I think I can't remember anything else.
I mean, we're all pretty much assuming Wonder Woman is coming. Another sign of that, we'll talk about this here in a little bit, is because on the Women Who Kick Ass panel that's later in the day, Connie Nielsen, who is also in Wonder Woman, happens to be in town, and you typically don't have someone like that in town unless they're on a bigger panel.
Correct. So you're good to go if you are expecting Wonder Woman. We're basically assuming it's going to be there.
I would be, especially considering it's the 75th anniversary, I would be shocked.
Yeah. So Warner Brothers will bring plenty of other stuff. They typically announce about half of what they're bringing in advance, and then they have little mini panels for things that are like smaller movies or that they're not really fully...
Oh, you know what we totally left off? Kong Skull Island with Tom Hiddleston.
Right, Hiddleston. And other cast.
And other cast.
So, yes. And like I said, that's probably going to be most of the panel, but there will probably be about half an hour where they do other things.
Yeah.
They've done that every time. They bring 6 to 8 things, I think, typically.
And this is even kind of a longer panel because it's 2 hours, and sometimes it's only 90 minutes. So. Yeah.
And it is a little odd that it's starting at 11:30, but we're assuming that's just because so many studios are not here this year.
For real.
Lionsgate, hello.
And should we talk about that for 1 second?
Sure.
Okay, so we all assumed Lionsgate was going to have a panel because 2 of the cast members for Power Rangers said that they are coming to Comic-Con. But as you can see, there is no Lionsgate panel. However, Lionsgate also did this in 2014 where for the Hunger Games, they didn't have a panel, but they brought cast out for signings, and they also had an off-site. Now, I have no idea if any of that's going to happen this year, but I would not totally count out no presence at all. And they brought, like, I mean, they didn't bring Jennifer Lawrence, but they brought out some decent names for Hunger Games. It wasn't like the D-list actors from the movie.
And you can expect the booth to have things, whether that be a signing or just a lot of promos and giveaways and things like that. There will be something.
Yeah, and again, considering that 2 cast members have said they're going, I still believe that they will do something. Right. And it's not out of the question that we might get a Power Rangers offsite either, including with footage, because I know that Hunger Games thing they did back in 2014 included like the live reveal of the new trailer. So
there you go. Maybe at a Comic-Con HQ event, since that's a Lionsgate company.
Maybe.
Sorry.
Okay, so following that Warner Brothers presentation, we have Star Trek. It's just called Star Trek, but what it is it's a 50th anniversary celebration of all things Star Trek. And showing up on that panel are William Shatner, Scott Bakula, Michael Dorn, Jerry Ryan, Brent Spiner, and moderated by Brian Fuller. This is a big deal.
This is awesome.
And I would assume that this is possibly not everyone who's going to show up. They may get some surprise last-minute guests. I'm going to put...
I would also assume that we will get something for Brian Fuller's CBS All Access Star Trek TV series.
Go. I'm expecting a lot of cool stuff to come out of this panel. It just looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. The next retrospective is, and this is a big deal as well, is at 3:15 is the Aliens 30th Anniversary panel with James Cameron, Gail Ann Hurd, Sigourney Weaver, Bill Paxton, Lance Henriksen, Michael Bean, and Paul Reiser. This is really cool. This one's going to be big, and Cameron and everyone will be discussing the 30th anniversary, but also the fact that there's a new Blu-ray coming out, and who knows, they may, as Kerry thinks, have some footage for Alien Covenant.
I think they will.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure if they do a Q&A, someone's going to ask Cameron about Avatar, but I don't think that is going to be the focus of this panel at all.
No.
If you're going and you're planning to ask, maybe ask about Aliens. Let's leave Avatar out of it for now until he does another Avatar panel.
This is true.
At 4:30, this one is since I'm not planning to do Hall H, if I actually do Hall H, this is what I'm actually looking forward to, and that's the Women Kick Ass panel that Entertainment Weekly does every year. And it's another strong lineup. It's Marina Baccarin, Melissa Benoist, is that how you pronounce her name?
I think so. And it also confirms that she'll be on the Supergirl panel. So.
Right. Lucy Lawless, Tatiana Maslany, and Connie Nielsen, the aforementioned Wonder Woman star. These are always good panels. These are not sit-through panels in Hall H. I always tell people that every year. These are ones you want to actually stick around for and watch because they're interesting, fun, informative, and you also get really cool people up on stage to listen and talk to. And sometimes, like last year, you get one of the guests fangirling over one of the other guests during the panel. It was hilarious. At 5:30, we have Marvel Studios back, and they have as usual, Kevin Feige and special guests provide an inside look at the ever-expanding Marvel Cinematic Universe. Basically, we have absolutely confirmed Guardians of the Galaxy is coming with Chris Pratt and other cast members. In fact, James Gunn said today it's most of the cast.
And Karen Gillan also 100% said she'll be at Comic-Con, so there you go.
And the director of Doctor Strange has basically been saying without saying that he's going to be at Comic-Con as well. So expect a Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy duo panel. And then, as usual, Marvel will bring something to announce special just at Comic-Con, and whether that's who's playing Captain Marvel or just anything else to do with Phase 3, we'll find out. It may just be one thing. It may be multiple things. We never know.
But they always go all out, so it's always a good time.
Right.
And then what do we have after that, James?
After that, hopefully, as he puts in his description, no one abandons his panel room this year. 7 o'clock is the annual Kevin Smith panel. I don't think he's going to lose as many people as last year, but he's going to be talking about yoga hosers and just being Kevin Smith at a Kevin Smith panel, which is typically entertaining.
Yes.
And
So let's talk about what time you have to get in line for this panel. I had someone ask me earlier today if they could go to a 10 a.m. panel in another room and then make it back here for Marvel Studios. Yeah, no. No. This line, this is the biggest day, this is the biggest lineup, all of Comic-Con weekend, all of Comic-Con week. Basically, if you are not in line for this long before the sun rises, you're not getting in because there will be very, very little turnover until after Marvel Studios. If you want to see Kevin Smith, you're probably fine. But basically, the people are going to pack in there for Marvel Studios and everything else, and nobody's going to leave.
Right. Yes. Our unofficial estimates are, I would assume less than 1,000 people will leave that room the entire day until after Marvel. You're not going to have more than one shoot of people probably get into that room throughout the day.
Yeah, and it's going to be a very long wait if you are indeed out in that shoot. Because again, nobody's going to leave. Like if you make it in, even if what you really care about is aliens, if you have put in the time, like you're going to stick around for Marvel. Let's be honest.
Unless,
So the one person asking, Sir Lister of Smeg, asking about the Kevin Smith panel, you just want to try after Marvel's done.
or during Marvel. Like
Yeah.
6 o'clock at get in line at 6 o'clock if you want to be nearer to the front. But I don't think the Hall H panels ever fill.
I don't think so either.
So I mean, if you want to show up at 6:55 and wait in the short line that will be there, then do it. Although I'd get there 15 minutes before because you do have to wait through the chutes in order to get into Hall H. They don't just let you walk in the front door.
Right.
System. Someone mentioned that the other day that I forgot to mention on the podcast.
So yeah, like you said, show up after Marvel Studios has already started because by that point all those people know they're not making it in for Marvel and they'll head out, and you can make it in for Kevin Smith. If you want to make it in for Marvel Studios or anything in that room, you basically need to plan on camping out relatively early.
Unfortunately, that's the way it is. There are too many people who want to go to that panel. If we told everyone you can be there at 6 a.m., then everyone else would get there ahead of you, and you would be out of luck. So we're trying not to promote the camping out process. I know that Comic-Con hates it, but people are going to do it. So you have to adjust accordingly based on what other people are doing.
Yeah, and especially in a year where like there's way fewer movie panels and they're all basically on Saturday. Like this is going to be, I think, even worse than normal.
Now, on the plus side, as all of these people get in line on Friday, because they're going to get in line, some people will start getting in line on Thursday. As they start, more and more people get in line on Friday, it will clear up the other stuff that you want to do on Friday, and you may have a slightly less crowded panels and floor during the day, because everyone's going to be out in that line. That's what happened last year for the Star Wars panel when people started getting in line on Wednesday. Thursday was basically walk-in in Hall H all day.
It's true, but I think Marvel is the difference this year, and because of that, you just got to be willing to put in the time commitment.
Yeah. So that's Hall H. It's the big one. It's the room that's going to be the talked about thing this year.
And I did want to mention real quick, we currently don't know this year's Hall H wristband system. They should be announcing that on the Toucan blog this week, and we, as always, will discuss it over on our site. But we know that the wristbands are back. We just don't know the process for this year. So keep an eye out for that to make sure that you know what's happening and you can get in.
There you go. All right, so that's the Hall H. We're going to move on to the Ballroom 20.
Over in Ballroom 20 on Saturday, we kick things off with the annual Once Upon a Time panel. And even though this doesn't list cast members, we know them, and I actually pulled them up ahead of time. I got smarter. It's going to be Jennifer Morrison, Robert Carlyle, Lana Parrilla, Josh Dallas, Amelia Day Raven, Colin O'Donoghue, Rebecca Mader, and Jared Gilmore. So basically everyone but Snow White. And then at 11, we get Vampire Diaries, which this has been in Hall H the last couple years, so it's a little bit interesting that it's moved down to Ballroom 20, in my opinion. They also don't list cast members, but we don't know those. And then at 12 p.m. kicks off the annual Fox animation block with The Simpsons, which is going to have Matt Groening and some other people, as well as Nancy Cartwright, who is also doing a offsite, her first ever gallery show over at Chuck Jones during Comic-Con. You can find that information on our site. Then we have Family Guy. They will be presenting a special preview of next season, and then at 1:45 we have American Dad with some cast members, and then at 2:30 we move on to Grimm, which has quite a bit of cast. The main thing that I noted about this panel is you will also be getting an exclusive first look at 2 other NBC dramas, Emerald City and Midnight Texas. So if you're excited about either of those, you can head to the Grimm panel to see a little bit of footage. And then after that, at 3:30, kicks off what is more or less the DC WB TV block that we had in Hall H the last 2 years. It's just this time they've moved it to the daytime in Ballroom 20. But this is essentially a block, so there's, instead of getting like 15 to 30 minutes between panels to clear them, it's basically just going to be back to back to back. But we've got Supergirl, which again doesn't list cast, but we already know that Melissa Benoist is in town. We know David Harewood is in town, so both of those should be going. DC's Legends of Tomorrow, we know a couple cast members for that. We know Brandon Routh is going to be there, Arthur Darville, and I feel like somebody else, but I'm not remembering who. The Flash is going to be there. Again, doesn't list cast, but we know Grant Gustin's going to be there, Danielle Panabaker, I think that's her name, and presumably more. And then we have Arrow, finally, which, again, we know Stephen Amell is going to be there. And after that, there is a long break so that they can set up for the Masquerade, which kicks off at 8:30 p.m. And if you've never done the Masquerade before, it's fun. If you want to actually be in the room for that, though, you do need a ticket, which they start handing out at noon over kind of in the Ballroom 20 area. They usually do sell out of those. They're free, so when I say sell out, I mean they run out. But there are other places you can see the Masquerade. I believe they show it in sales, and there's actually beer, isn't there?
I think so. There's sales 5AB and 6A. Tickets are not required for those rooms.
I think there's actually beer, though, up in sales, so that's where I would go. Just in case you were wondering. But yeah, this is... I mean, it's a little bit different that we've got the whole DC block here, but this is pretty much your usual same exact Saturday schedule that we've had for years at this point. Having said that, though, the DC stuff will fill up, so...
Yes, absolutely.
I don't know. There will be some turnover because the Once Upon a Time... Yeah, there will definitely be turnover because the Once Upon a Time fans are a big group. A lot of them will leave after. The Vampire Diaries fans are a big group. A lot of them will leave after. The Fox Animation block is another big group. A lot of them will leave after. So if you want to make it in for DC TV, I don't know, I'd line up maybe at like 2? What do you think, James?
Into the room?
Yeah.
To get you just sometime during the animation block.
Yeah.
You're gonna. I mean, obviously we're gonna try and keep an eye on it on the day of and make sure. But I would assume that if you just want to be in the room, which is really what we are going for here, is making sure you can get in the room. All of you who want to see the DC thing and don't care about being up front, don't go early because you're just going to crowd out and cause more mass hysteria for all the Once Upon a Time and Vampire Diaries people who will then show up even earlier. Let them get into the room and then get out, because you know that a significant number of Once Upon a Time fans, Vampire Diaries fans, and animation fans are going to go and then leave.
Yeah.
So if you show up until during the animation panel, there will be less hysteria about a massive line for Ballroom 20 and less people rushing there, and you will get in if you show up during the animation block.
That's great advice.
And again, we're only talking about if you want to make it into the room. If you want to be like at the very front, you do your own thing.
Yeah. Unfortunately, again.
But that's pretty much Ballroom 20 on Saturday, and that's also the last day that we have Ballroom 20 because as of at least 2011, we haven't had Ballroom 20 on Sundays.
Right. They don't bother. They don't feel like fixing it up for after the masquerade, I guess.
Which makes sense.
And I think that's also why Vampire Diaries is back in 20 because they just decided not to put it on Sunday in Hall H this year. Maybe. Because wasn't it in Hall H on Sundays?
Mm-hmm.
So they just decided to move it to Saturday, I guess. And it's like, no, it can't go into Hall H, so back to Ballroom 20.
Indeed.
All right, Kim, why don't you take us through
Indigo. Over at the Hilton Bayfront, which has a room capacity of just over 2,600 because I have my room capacity spreadsheet open. So prepared. So we start off Saturday, 10 a.m. With 2 shows from Cartoon Network, We Bare Bears, and followed by at 10, followed by Powerpuff Girls at 11. I don't know much about We Bare Bears. I think it's pretty popular. I think most of the voices, series creator and series writer, are going to be in attendance there. And it's just I think it just finished its first season aired last year. And then the Powerpuff Girls, I'm actually surprised to see that it's their first Comic-Con appearance. So all the voices will be there, and I would think that'd be pretty popular because that's made a huge comeback.
Yeah, well, they rebooted it, basically, so this is for the reboot. But yeah, I think that's going to be a huge panel.
Mm-hmm.
People are super excited.
So that runs till noon, and then we get kind of Warner Brothers Television coming in for a few hours, starting with Blind Spot at noon, and NBC series that was heavily promoted last year for its freshman year. So the second season begins in September. Series stars. What's that?
I was just going to say, that's actually one of the very few WB panels where they did announce who's coming.
Yeah. Series stars Sullivan Stapleton, Jamie Alexander, Rob Brown, Audrey Esparza, Ashley Johnson, with writer and executive producer Martin, forgive me, Giro, if I'm saying that incorrectly. So, and then following that is The Originals, which airs on the CW. Yeah, like Harry said, no cast or production team was announced for The Originals. Same with Lucifer at 1:30. Just as series stars and names of producers Joe Henderson and Edie Moldorovich. So Lucifer, and then followed by Gotham at 2:10. So I know there's a lot of Gotham fans out there, so I can see that getting full.
Yeah, and just like Mike Nelson noted, one thing to note about the WBDC show block is that Gotham isn't part of, it's not over there in Ballroom 20 with the rest of them, it's over here in Indigo, so that is a little bit weird. But I'm sure there's some logistical reason for it, I just don't possibly know what it would be.
Pretty much guarantee that the reason is that it's not on the CW. It's a Fox show. So they don't want to put it with their CW shows block. So that's probably
Makes sense. But at the same time, though, WB owns both of them. And it's not the CW who brings them to Comic-Con, so.
It's just that's what's weird because the last 2 years they've been with that block.
Yeah.
So it is weird, but that's probably why.
Yeah.
So at 3 we move on to sci-fi series Expanse, followed by Magicians at 4, and I know those are huge. You know, and kind of I think Gotham has the same fans. I don't know. I like them all, so it speaks to me that they're all together, so it makes it easy. So Expanse and Magician, great sci-fi series, and again, no cast announced. I don't know if you guys know any different for either of those series.
No, sadly not.
But they're awesome, so that's great. And then 5 p.m. move on to Fox TV with Son of Zorn, which is already being promoted around downtown. So they are really trying to kick that series off.
They're trying to make Zorn happen.
Make Zorn happen. And then followed by Last Man on Earth, which is 3rd season, I think, or 2nd season just finished at least. So Will Forte, Kristen Schaal, January Jones, Mel Rodriguez, Mary Steenburgen, and Cleopatra Coleman from Last Man on Earth will be there. So that's at 6, getting late in the evening over in the Indigo. And followed, lastly, back to Sci-Fi with an exclusive screening of their upcoming series, Incorporated. So if you're looking for something to do in the evening.
Do you think that because of who the producer is, that we know Ben Affleck's going to be in town because he said he was? Do you think he shows up to introduce this show that he's producing for Sci-Fi?
There's a good chance.
It's possible.
People love doing that.
It's possible, and it's later. It's later at night though, so he may be at some party.
He may still be depressed knowing Comic-Con with all the stuff they have to do.
This is true. I do think there will be a decent amount of turnover here, even though, like Kim said, I also do think that there is quite a bit of crossover potential, just because this is a whole lot of really good TV in Indigo, and fans of good TV typically are fans of other good TV. But like, I don't necessarily think that fans of Powerpuff Girls are going to be fans of The Expanse, you know?
There'll be a lot of turnover, yeah, I agree.
There's a lot of crossover there.
Yeah.
So I would expect if enough of the Bear Bears and Powerpuff Girls fans get in to that room in the beginning, that it will clear out significantly for the rest of the day, and then have definite turnover basically every show.
Yeah. So I think you're basically okay to show up at like the start of the previous panel, and if you're really worried about making it in, like, to me, Gotham is maybe the only one you need to worry about. So for Gotham, maybe I would show up sometime in the originals panel and sit through Lucifer, you know?
Right.
But other than that, I don't think you'll have too much trouble. Just show up roughly around the start of the previous panel.
Yep. That's for sure. I don't think this one's going to be a packed. I mean, it's not. I mean, there will be a packed day, but I don't think you're going to have to worry about, because I think changes.
Nah. Like I said, the only one I think that will probably have a decent line is Gotham. So for that, I would just plan on getting there around the originals. Everything else, I think you'll be fine.
All right. And that is also the last day we're doing Indigo. That one is also not open on Sunday.
Yep.
So
And then to 6 BCF.
That's me. So let's see what we got here. We are starting off at 10:30 with the Forrest J. Ackerman Centennial Celebration. Forrest J. Ackerman would have been 100 this year, and so the Famous Monsters publisher Phil Kim, the 40 caretaker Joe Moe, and some guests take a look at his career and his impact on the industry. At 11:45 is the annual Quick Draw with Mark Evanier, Sergio Aragonis, Scott Shaw, and Keith Knight. This is always a blast, so check out that if that's your thing. 1 o'clock, Cartoon Voices 1, with, again, Mark Evanier, Phil Lamar, Brian T. Delaney, George Kidder, Greg Berger, Julian Boucher, and Jim Meskimen. So that's awesome, and the only one I recognize a few of them, but my favorite one in there is Greg Berger, just because he's Grimlock on Transformers. 2:45 is Scooby-Doo and WWE Curse of the Speed Demon. There's also a Scooby-Doo movie that shows every year, it seems, at Comic-Con, and this is the latest one. This one is going to have WWE superstars Sheamus and Paige, along with Greg Griffin, Tim DeVar, Michael Luisi, Jay Bastian, and Eric Goldman will moderate. It looks like you will be getting a screening, I think.
Yep.
And there will also be special prizes for some lucky fans. Following that, we have Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency from BBC America with Elijah Wood, Samuel Barnett, Hannah Marks, Jade Eschette, Max Landis, Robert Cooper, Tim Leong. So this is premiering in October, and so this will be the first panel at Comic-Con. And definitely check this one out if you want to see Elijah Wood at the con. He's there for a couple panels, but this is the one that he's actually in, not just producing. Followed by, at 5:15, by Robert Kirkman's Outcast, When in Rome, with Robert Kirkman, Chris Black, Patrick Fugit, Philip Glenister, Brent Spiner, Ren Schmidt, and Reg E. Caffey, moderated by Scott Aukerman. Now, was Brent Spiner on the Star Trek list? Bless you. I don't remember if Brent was on the Star Trek list. But
I think he was.
Okay.
He is, yeah.
All right. So this is Cinemax's new show, and of course we will be seeing what they're bringing for this year. Followed by 6:30, but what I think is going to be one of the surprise hits of the con is Riverdale pilot screening and Q&A. And this one, that's a long description, and it doesn't list anyone who's going to be there.
But I don't know anybody who's going to be there. But I did want to point out that if for any reason you can't make it to this and you're super excited about Riverdale or any of its cast, the Archie Comics 75th anniversary panel also said that they pretty much straight out said that they'd have a couple of cast members from Riverdale. So
that means some cast members will likely show up to this.
Yes, well, it says Q&A, so.
Although it is only 55 minutes long, and they're showing the screening, which is probably going to be about 45 minutes, 42 to 45 minutes. So you're going to get a 10-minute Q&A. So just be prepared for that. Followed at 7:25, we're going late in this room, frequency pilot screening and Q&A. And again, it's only 55 minutes.
It lists cast, though.
Well, there you go. Peyton List, Riley Smith, Mekhi Phifer, Jeremy Carver, and Jennifer Gwartz will all be there. So they're going to show it and have a Q&A, and again, 10-minute Q&A. At 8:20 is Time After Time pilot screening and Q&A, and this one lists some, this lists some stars and creators. So Kevin Williamson, Marcos Siega, Freddie Stroma, and Genesis Rodriguez. And again, short 10-minute Q&A.
And if you were like me and keep having trouble getting all of these time after time, timeless, whatever, time traveling shows coming to us in the fall, this is the H.G. Wells one, so on ABC. The other one has Abigail Spencer on NBC. So
there you go. So this room is going to be a lot of turnover, and I think the big ones are going to be probably the end of the night with the Outcast and Riverdale. I think those are going to be the big ones.
I think so too. Though you know what? I feel like Dirk Gently's may actually be bigger than we think.
Really?
I do.
I don't know. So that's why I'm like, I don't know.
I feel like that one might actually be decently. But yeah, what's the capacity on this room? I know I asked that like 5 times in the last podcast.
I think it's 2,000.
I think so too. Kim, do you have that list open?
She's like, yes, as I work to get it open. I'm pretty sure I did it enough times the other day.
I was reading it. Are we doing 7AB?
6
BCF.
BCF. I just want to know what the capacity is.
Uh-huh. I'm on it. 2160.
2160. There we go. Yeah, I don't think you'll have too much trouble getting into any of this. Outcast, I don't know. I'd probably line up in like Scooby-Doo.
Right. Which would then be the same for Riverdale, because I don't know if... I mean, Outcast may clear out some, but if you're really worried about it, then yeah, you'd probably want to come in during Scooby-Doo and just sit through the other two just to be sure you're in for Riverdale. Because I think, based on what I see, I think that actually is going to be fairly popular.
Yeah, I think so too. So
frequency and Time After Time are going to be, so I assume.
But the good news is this is a pretty solid lineup of panels, so even if you have to sit through a couple of things that you're not like super into, these all look like they'll be pretty interesting, pretty good panels.
Right. the sit-through panels that are actually not bad to sit through.
Yeah. And for the record, Quick Draw and Cartoon Voices are awesome. So those are not by any stretch of the imagination like boring, quote-unquote, sit-through panels. So, and look, Scott Mueller even said Quick Draw is so fun because he's right.
Exactly. All right. That's 6 BCF. Let's move on to 6A.
I am doing 6A. So 6A on Saturday, we kick things off with What Happened, which is basically John Schnepp and Holly Payne talking about what happened to really good scripts of the years that just haven't been made into films. They'll be looking at things like Superman Lives, a Dune movie that was never made, just a whole bunch of movies like that. And then at 11:15, we have Back to the 90s, Nickelodeon's All That Reunion, and Legends of the Hidden Temple, which if you were a child anywhere near the 90s, this should have several names that you recognize, like Josh Server, Danny Tamborelli, Lori Beth Denberg, Kel Mitchell, Kirk Fogg, D. Bradley Baker. They'll also be discussing the upcoming new TV movie based on Legends of the Hidden Temple. So, again, this should be a whole lot of fun and a nice look back at that era. Over in Marvel Animation, they'll be talking about Marvel's Ultimate Spider-Man versus the Sinister Six, Marvel's Avengers Ultron Revolution, and Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. It lists several higher-ups over in the Marvel Animation department, but it also says that it will have special guests who have already secretly RSVP'd. So you can probably expect a couple of voice actors or pretty special guests. And then at 1:45 has, sorry Kevin Smith, but this is truthfully my favorite panel description, Spotlight on Stan Lee, and the description just reads, "Enough said."
That's pretty epic.
It's accurate as well.
Very accurate.
Very, very accurate. What more do you possibly need to know? At 3 o'clock is the annual Marvel Cup of Joe, which is Joe Quesada basically just talking about anything and everything that you want to know about Marvel. It'll have some other people on the panel as well, like C.B. Cebulski, I'm sure I'm butchering that, Kieran Gillen, and some other folks who, again, they'll just be talking about anything Marvel that you want to know. And then at 4:15, we have the Abigail Spencer NBC version of time travel shows in Timeless, which will be a pilot screening followed by a Q&A, and this one will have Abigail Spencer, Matt Lanter, Malcolm Barrett. It's made by Aaron Kripke. He'll be there as well. They'll be showing the whole pilot and then a very short Q&A. Because, yeah, it's also only an hour. And then we have a break, because if you notice, Timeless ends at 5:15, and the next panel isn't until 6:45. So they will probably add some kind of filler panel between those two at some point here in the next 2 weeks, because that's what happened last year when something like that happened. But at 6:45, we have Stars with Ash vs. Evil Dead, and it's going to be Bruce Campbell, Lucy Lawless, Ray Santiago, Dana De Lorenzo, Lee Majors, and Ted Rami, all there to talk about Season 2. And over in another room, which I think is 60, at 10? Anybody know they're also showing an episode?
They are.
They are. I know. I'm looking too. I should have pulled this up earlier. It's late. I know that. Yeah, at 10 o'clock in 60E, they are showing a first viewing of the Season 2 premiere episode. So, with an introduction by cast and executive producers. So if you can't make it to the one, or if you want to do both, there you go. You can have a very Ash vs. Evil Dead Saturday evening.
So
at 6A,
this room is
yeah,
going to be packed.
mostly because of Stan Lee.
I assume that the All That reunion is going to be packed for that.
True.
Stan Lee will be more than packed for that because people just pack in Stan Lee panels.
And Ash vs. Evil Dead is also pretty popular.
Right. So, if you want to see Ash vs. Evil Dead, get there after Stan Lee leaves.
Yeah.
You don't want to fight that crowd.
No. So if you do want to make it in for Stan Lee, I don't know. What time would you line up?
I mean, if you want to risk it, get there during all that because that room will clear some people out and hopefully there aren't too many people in line. If you're worried about it, get there before. Get there earlier in the morning and just sit through all the panels. I mean, unfortunately, that's the way it is because of how many people want to see Stan Lee.
Yeah.
But that's what you got to do.
And I think for the Nick stuff, because not only will you be fighting the Nickelodeon crowd, but also the Stan Lee crowd and a handful of the Ash vs. Evil Dead people, I would plan on getting there maybe at like 8? Maybe.
Just if you want to guarantee yourself in the room for stuff up through Stan Lee, you're going to have to commit the day probably just to be guaranteed. If you want to risk it, show up at 10, 11.
Yeah.
You may not get in, but who knows? So, yep, that's the way it goes.
Yep. So that's 6A on Saturday.
Kim, 7AB.
7AB, which has a capacity of 480 people, so good luck. But it does have a full schedule on Saturday, running from 10 all the way. Last one it's at 8:30. So here we go. Starting at 10 is I Read It Before and After. It was a movie with a load of great authors discussing the jump from page to screen. Ransom Riggs, Taylor, who wrote Tales of the Peculiar. James Dashner from The Maze Runner. Melissa De La Cruz, The Isle of the Lost, a Descendants prequel. Scott Westerfield, Uglies and Zeros. Ben H. Winters, Underground Airlines. And one of Comic-Con special guests, Peter David, and moderated by Anthony Bresnikan from Entertainment Weekly.
I actually think this sounds kind of cool.
It does.
I mean, how often do you get a whole bunch of authors in a room and get to ask them, so do you think they screwed up what you wrote when they converted it, or did you like it? So
yeah. In the modern era, a lot of authors actually have a little bit more control when they option their stuff. So that's also something to find out is how much control do you actually have?
Yeah. So
that is followed at 11 by Marvel Download, the Digital House of Ideas, panel with VP and Executive Editor Ryan Penagos, if I said that correctly, otherwise known as Agent M. Apologies, Agent M, if I didn't say your last name correctly. He takes us through, or will be taking us through, the latest on Marvel's Infinite Comics, and as well as what's happening on their app and Marvel Unlimited. And that is followed at noon by The Female Geek, Women as Fans and Creators, a panel full of authors again, and a panel. What are we doing? I'm getting overwhelmed already, you guys.
It's okay.
It's 10 days out.
It's okay, Kim. Okay.
So a great female geek panel with a bunch of wonderful authors.
Followed by
at 1 Image Comics. I know this is a full room. Image Comics at 1, riffing on reality.
Which has Matt Fraction. That's a pretty big deal.
Yes. Yep. And then at 2, a spotlight on Jamie McKelvey, which looks like a kind of a sister panel to the Thursday panel with Kieran Gillen. They just kind of switch places, one moderating the other.
Can I just say, I love that it says, and who better to interrogate him than his mostly platonic life partner, Kieran Gillen. So I thought that was funny.
And then at 3 is the 30th anniversary of Dark Horse panel. No panelists listed for that one, but I'm sure that'll be big. Lots of announcements I'm sure that they'll be bringing. And then at 4 is Oddball Comics Live with cartoonist Scott Shaw, and this has a great write-up of the panel. And I don't know much about this, but it sounds like it's a really neat. I don't know. Have you guys seen this? His presentation.
I don't think I've ever seen him here. I might have seen him at one of the smaller cons in the area. But also Scott Shaw, I'm pretty sure, has gone to every single Comic-Con. So he's been around for a while.
I love that every description of him on every panel is Scott Shaw with an exclamation point.
Exclamation. As does the panel. Exclamation mark. So that is followed 5:30 by WWE, Then Now and Forever, which is presented by Boom Studios. So it looks like they're joining a partnership with the WWE to bring it to comics a little bit. That's probably a niche following there, but sounds interesting. Also niche. What's that?
Freebie alert at that panel. Every attendee will receive an exclusive double-sided one-page comic for free.
There you go. And also niche gathering at 6:30 is Magic the Gathering panel, Blogatog Live with the Magic head designer Mark Rosewater. And that's popular with that crowd, so I'm sure that's a big deal. 7:30 is, I can't say that word.
Kingsglaive, I think, isn't it?
Final Fantasy 15. So the movie that's coming out, and on this panel is Aaron Paul, so I know, Breaking Bad fans might take note of that. And director and other motion capture actors are involved with that panel. So heading into the evening, so that one's at 7:30, and then the last one is at 8:30, which is the official Gaia online panel, hosted by Chris Castanetto, and everything that Gaia Online has planned for 2016, and I meant to look them up, but I did not.
That's okay. So, for the most part, I don't really feel like any of this is going to be super hard to get into.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I am, though, truthfully, even I'm kind of eyeing that Kingsglaive panel because I don't care about Final Fantasy, but I do like Breaking Bad. So, who knows? 7:30 p.m. at night? Maybe I have a shot even just showing an hour early. Who knows?
They are going to debut the full-length movie trailer, and it's a fully CG animated movie, and it'll probably be really pretty.
Again, it's Aaron Paul. I don't really care about the rest. You don't have to sell me. So yeah, if anybody has any experience getting into a Final Fantasy panel, please feel free to tell me if it's super packed normally. Yeah, I don't feel like any of that, though, is going to be incredibly hard to get into.
Now that you said Aaron Paul's going to be on that panel, it's going to be...
I know. I need to learn to keep my mouth shut.
Gee.
Well, it's definitely, like I said, their niche, each one is different than the other, so I think those are going to clear out in between.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Not only will it not necessarily be full at any point during the day, but you will also have a lot of turnover, so show up 10, 15 minutes before, unless you think it to be a little bit more crowded, because, the WWE, who knows, it may be packed. If you see a lot of a big crowd gathering, get in line.
Yeah, I agree with that. So that's 7AB on Saturday. Shall we head on over to the Horton?
The Horton Grand. Now, we will reiterate how to get tickets to this because it is a ticketed room. You have to try for a ticket in sales near the autograph area, and each ticket, we forgot to mention this the other day, each ticket that you pull will get you 2 seats. So if you and a friend are going, you only have to get 1 ticket. You can both try because it is randomized. It's a lottery. So you can both try, but you only need 1. So if one of you gets it, you're good to go. You have to show up 15 minutes before it starts, and once you have a ticket, you're guaranteed a seat, 2 seats. So let's get into what's happening there today. 11:30, Creating Universe with Neil deGrasse Tyson. We'll host an A-list panel of creators, including Len Wein and Rob Pryor.
And this may be like the most eclectic panel I have ever seen.
Yes, it is. And who knows who else he's going to pull in.
Yeah, but the reason I say that is basically because like Neil deGrasse Tyson is going to be talking about creating universes literally like out in space. Len Wein will be talking about it through imagination, and Rob Pryor will be providing a live painting exhibition to show you like visually how to create a universe. Like, this is it's awesome, but it's a totally eclectic group of people.
If you are wanting to get into Hall H and you don't, run up to the tables, grab a ticket, and go console yourself with this interesting panel. There you go.
There you go.
At 1 o'clock, spotlight on Pokemon Adventures creators. The team behind Viz Media's Pokemon Adventures, Hidenero Kasuka and Satoshi Yamamoto. I didn't do that bad on those, I think.
I don't think you did either.
Will lead the special presentation. Attendees will get a sneak peek and an insight into the process behind the creation. Attendees will receive a limited edition poster. That is at 1. At 2:30 is Vice Principals.
Hold on. Before you move on, I think Kim wanted to say something about Thursday and Pokemon.
Oh, well, there's another... Right, yes. The Thursday... Yes. I'm laughing so much. The Thursday, it's... I don't have it open, but it's the Ingress in Pokemon Go, just in a very small room, and I can't remember which one offhand.
I'm pulling it up.
Thank you.
It is... it's at 5 p.m. over in 25 ABC.
25 ABC, which has a capacity of 480. Since the panels were announced, the Thursday panels were announced this past Thursday, don't we think the Pokemon Go situation has kind of gone crazy in the past 4 days?
Like 4 days? Yeah, Pokemon Go has basically exploded. The entire universe is playing Pokemon.
So I was at Disneyland, and half the people I saw walking around on their phones, I noticed they had the app open. So
yeah. So we didn't mention this on Friday because at the time it wasn't that big of a deal,
It wasn't a big deal.
It really is now. So they had no way to know.
Uh-oh, it's Kerry
Come to find out.
Yeah.
So that's all.
That's
yeah,
it.
and then also a note on that particular panel, those two gentlemen are going to be at an offsite at a Barnes & Noble in Mira Mesa, and I'm not sure what time, but if you're interested, you can look at the event schedule, outside events schedule. I recognize their names. It's during Comic-Con.
Okay. So if you don't have a ticket that day and you want to see them, there you go.
A nearby Barnes & Noble.
Yep.
Plus it gets you out of the madness of downtown if you want to stay for a bit. All right, so at 2:30, we have Vice Principals, the new HBO comedy series starring Danny McBride and Walter Goggins. It will be moderated by Matt Myra, and also there will be Jody Hill. So this is the team that created Eastbound and Down, and this is their new dark comedy series. At 4 o'clock is Nerdist News Live with Jessica Chobot. I'll figure out how to say her name someday. But there'll be special guests and some Q&A and things like that.
But probably not Hardwick because he will be busy moderating every panel in Hall H.
At 5:30 is The Final Girls and the Future of the Midnight Movie. And this is creatives and select cast from the Final Girls film, including Todd Strauss-Schulson, Joshua Miller, M.A. Fortin, Ellie Smolkin, cast members Thomas Middleditch and Angela Trimbers. So this will be featuring exclusive signed giveaways from the film.
And the cool thing about this is that it also says they'll have actual fan favorite final girls from horror films throughout the years. So they haven't announced those, but it'll be cool.
And I think they're having an ice cream truck outside the venue.
They are.
All right, and then finally at 7 o'clock is the exclusive designated survivor screening. And on this will be Kiefer Sutherland and Maggie Q and Cal Penn. There will be a screening, and then they will be there for a panel Q&A, and there will also be surprise guests.
So, of these, I think without a doubt the Pokemon one is truthfully going to be the hardest one to get into. Wouldn't you think?
Possibly. I mean, unless someone considers the designated survivor screening to be like their Saturday night event where they get to go see a screening and such. That one may be pretty difficult as well.
Maybe. I still think Pokemon's going to be harder to get. But the point...
On this room, by the way.
Yeah. But for any of these, basically plan on being there earlier, because even though CCI says that like the drawings start at 9, they really start much earlier than that. Doors open usually around 6:30. Usually they have the drawings going by like 7. So don't think that you're going to stroll in at like 8:50.
Right.
Just saying.
And then they also said that they are going to be doing, I think I read this, that they're going to be doing a standby drawing as well.
Yes.
Yes. You have a second chance where you can get a standby, and that's why you need to arrive at least 15 minutes before your panel if you get a ticket, because within 15 minutes they will start giving standby people your seats.
Yeah. Though I always wonder, like, if you have a standby, are you really gonna like hoof it all the way over to the Horton Grand Theater just on a shot that you might get in? I wouldn't, but I'm sure some people would.
Really want in? I would assume you would. Yeah. I mean, if it's for Sausage Party, I know people will show up and stand by for that.
For Sausage Party, yeah. For the rest of these,
maybe. But there will be someone.
Yes, but...
And Horton Grand, this is the last day for Horton Grand as well. They shut that down for Sunday, too.
That's 100% what I was about to say. So that pretty much does it for Saturday. Let's take a couple of questions. Since we just talked about this, Mike Nelson said, I'm hoping Jamie Lee Curtis, who's in town for Scream Queens, will be at the Final Girls panel as she is the original Final Girl. That'd be awesome.
That would be awesome. And makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
That would be very awesome. It does. Mike Nelson also said that there will be no Amanda Bynes on that Nick anniversary panel, Sad Trombone Sound.
Yes. We need a little bit of crazy injected into our Comic-Con.
And then...
one. No, not that one. Oh, trailer. Yes, this one. Jennifer asked, did I miss Trailer Park on any of these Hall H schedules? You did miss it because it's not there.
But I feel like in 2014, they added trailer parks late.
They might. And there's gaps. There are some... They're starting late on Saturday.
Yeah, so they have in the past added a trailer park before, it's just so that people aren't stuck sitting outside for quite so long. So we could very easily see a trailer park added. And the easiest way to see any updated panel for anyone who is not familiar with SCED is on the right-hand sidebar. There's a little updated option. If you click on that, it'll show you all the panels that have been updated. So...
Right. Oh, also, I wanted to answer a question from Twitter from Stargirl11. The question is, if we're going to a smaller panel that we suspect won't be full, is it frowned upon to sneak in a bit late? I'm sure someone frowns upon it, but it's done all the time. So don't worry about it. Just try not to be intrusive. You know, come in, sit near the back. Don't try and get all the way up to the front and walk in front of people, and you should be fine.
Yeah, and be aware that sometimes like they really won't let you in.
Right.
Even if it is like a quote-unquote smaller room. Sometimes, like, once the panel before is started, they're not going to let you just, like, open the door and go in.
Right. That does happen, unfortunately.
It does.
Room. Alyssa Gonzalez asked, will there be any more info given about
So,
science?
we have some more questions.
Yeah, I had one from Alyssa about the autographs. There will be more information about autographs coming when CCI announces all of the autographs and the sales. That's it. Did Carrie freeze? Is she still there?
I'm still here. It is kind of freezing on my end, though, so I may restart here in a second. Mike Nelson also said, do you think that with all the off-site stages, Entertainment Weekly, Sci-Fi, Nerdist, that the studios are skipping Hall H to take things directly to the media instead? Not really. Lionsgate is the one possible exception. I mean, it's possible that they'd take it just to CCHQ, but truthfully, I feel like if they do an off-site thing, I think it's more likely that they would do their own. I mean, I might be totally off base, but I just don't see them being like, yeah, the CCHQ off-site thing while all the reporters are inside in Hall H. Like, let's do that. You know, at least like if you do a big splashy offsite, kind of like they did with Hunger Games a couple years ago, like that's enough to get a whole press release. Like people report on that all by itself. If they just have like a little 20-minute thing over at Comic-Con HQ, that's really not the same.
And that's their own thing. But the EW thing, that I can see them doing, because that's just one stop on their little mini press tour, and of course Entertainment Weekly is going to be needing to cover that, and Entertainment Weekly is pretty big.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that like the Power Rangers people may do Comic-Con HQ. I just don't think that would be like the only thing that they do.
Right.
So
yeah, I think we're almost guaranteed a signing at the Lionsgate booth at this point.
Yeah, I agree. I'm curious about an offsite though, since again that's what they did for Hunger Games. But I think at the very least we'll get a signing, and it's not out of the question that they would just bring cast in for just a signing though, because they did that with what was the second Divergent movie called?
Insurgent.
Insurgent. There we go. They brought Shailene Woodley and Theo James to town solely for a signing back in 2014.
And no panel.
No panel, no offsite, no nothing. Literally, they brought them in just for a signing. So it's not completely out of the question.
Right. That's a bit crazy.
It was a bit crazy.
So let's get to our dark horses for the day.
Kim, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Mine is Buckaroo Banzai getting the band back together at 5:30 in room 8, which has a capacity of 340 people. And this, there was just a reunion kind of screening, and I forget where, and I'm with Clancy Brown and Peter Weller. I was like blanking on who plays Buckaroo Banzai. So Buckaroo Banzai is coming back. I think people didn't know about the movie for a long time, and now it's a cult classic. So this panel features Lewis Smith, who was Perfect Tommy, Billy Vera, who was Pinky Carruthers, Damon Hines, who was Scooter Lindley, and Gerald Peterson, who was Rugsucker. And a few of the big names are missing from this panel, so maybe we can look forward to some more panelists being added, but I'm going to try to make it to this one. And then plus we've got the Kevin Smith series in the works, so maybe he'll make a little surprise appearance as well.
Maybe he will.
You want to go now, Kerry?
Sure. I just wanted to point out the DC 75 Years of Wonder Woman panel. It's in 60E at 3 p.m., and the main reason I wanted to point it out is because it says, don't miss this historic panel with top-notch talent and a few surprise guests who have shaped the amazing Amazon into the hero and inspiration she is today. A couple years ago, when we had basically the same panel but for Superman, it said something very similar, and Henry Cavill, who was in town for Batman vs. Superman, stopped by in maybe even this room, but if not, it was something equally as small. So I think it's entirely possible that if Gal Gadot is in town for Wonder Woman for the WB panel over in Hall H, that she may stop by this.
That's a good bet, actually, I think, at this point. And my dark horse is something a little off the beaten track. It is the Children of Tendu Live, Episode 2, Tendu with a Vengeance. This is the podcast from Jose Molina and Javier Grillo Marchó. Did I pronounce that one right? Anyway, they've written a lot of stuff. They've worked on Lost, Firefly, Agent Carter, The 100, and so many other shows. And they're going to do a live presentation of their podcast, and they said that they have something special planned on Twitter today or yesterday. So this one is out in the Neil Morgan Auditorium at the San Diego Library, which does full panels all day long on kind of like fandom and podcasting, and also an educational track. So I think Kim wanted to talk about that a little later, since it's kind of off-site-ish. But definitely something to look into if you're a fan of these guys, or of just people talking about writing for TV and other things.
Did we want to talk about, those are our main dark horses, did we want to talk about anything else?
You actually mentioned a couple of them already, but I just wanted to reiterate the Archie Comics Forever 75 Years of Storytelling looks really fun, because it's got a lot of the people. Archie Comics has been doing a lot of stuff recently, and really expanding what they're doing and changing their formats, and I think this is something where it kind of just get into the history and the future of the company, as well as the fact that there may be Riverdale actors showing up. And then you mentioned the Wonder Woman one and the Aaron Paul one, so that's really all I had, because it's been so busy I haven't had time to go through the entire schedule for a second time.
I wanted to point out, because I saw a couple people talking yesterday, like, there is no John Barrowman panel on Saturday, but there is, because there's a Doctor Who and Torchwood Comics, Titan Comics panel over in 5AB at 3:30, and John Barrowman will actually be on that. He will also be signing autographs, which we have that information on our site. And then Winona Earp is in, based on what I've seen on Twitter, way too small of a room in 24 ABC at 2:30 p.m.
Yeah,
so you can stop by. Yeah, so both of those should be fun. Anything else you had, Kim?
Whoops, nothing for me, no.
Okay. Did we have any questions before we move on to Sunday? Doesn't look like it. All right. Kim, do you want to kick us off on Sunday in Hall H?
Yes, please. This is very exciting. And there's only 3 things on Sunday in Hall H. Starting at 10 is Sherlock, which is great to see in Hall H. I don't think they'll fill it, but I don't know. It'll definitely be full though. But I don't know if this is going to be a line situation, but maybe. Announced are Amanda Abington, Mark Gatiss, Stephen Moffat, and Sue Virtue.
But
moderated by Chris Harder. But with Doctor Strange the day before, and his face, not currently due to the All-Star game, but will soon be again plastered all around downtown, Benedict Cumberbatch may be there. Will most likely be there.
Yeah, I feel like there's a very good chance. I think
it's like a 72% chance.
Yeah. 72%. There we go.
What's that, James?
I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah, we think basically PBS, unlike James Gunn, and bless James Gunn, is basically just playing by the Marvel rules and not announcing ahead of time like that Benedict's gonna be there. But maybe we're wrong, but I don't necessarily think that we are. So.
And then, so that's followed at 11:15 by Supernatural, which has everyone from the show celebrating their 12th season, which is crazy. And that's always a fun panel. And I don't watch Supernatural. I'm one of the few people, but I've gone to this panel before to wait for something, and they're so much fun, and I love these guys. And I don't even watch the show. And then the last panel of the day, it's Fox bringing Prison Break and 24 Legacy. So, bringing back those shows, kind of a reunion panel, and then that ends the day in Hall H.
This is the shortest Hall H day I've ever seen.
Does it usually go later on Sundays?
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember.
5 o'clock before.
I mean, in years past, it's gone on to like much later, like 4.
3 to 4:30 has been the usual.
we usually have an FX panel over in here, but this year we don't. I feel like, truthfully, everybody is just bringing less this year.
Seems like it.
Because even like Adult Swim, who you can pretty much normally guarantee brings like, and Cartoon Network, who both of those usually bring like everything in the kitchen sink. I think this year they're each only bringing like 3 or 4 panels each. Just everybody's cutting way down. It's been a really interesting look at the schedule and what's been getting cut. Maybe it's just an off year, or maybe we're seeing the new trend. Don't know. But I think of these, Sherlock is going to be the hardest to get into, but I also agree. I don't necessarily know that it's going to completely fill the room. So if you're worried, I don't know, show up maybe at like 8?
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, show up, eat, get an early breakfast, and head on in the line, because, you know, you're going to basically be the Sherlock and the Supernatural fans will both be there early.
Yeah. But again, none of this is going to be like, it's not like a Marvel line. So don't, again, if all you want is to make it into the room, don't feel like you have to show up at like 2 in the morning.
Right. And don't be scared by the fact that you see a line out there.
Yeah.
And even if you see a fairly long line, remember, until they condense everything at about 5 a.m. in the morning, that line looks gigantic, and you can still get in. Even if it's behind the convention center, that's nothing.
Yeah.
So, don't be afraid if you see the line stretching to behind the convention center at night. That's not a problem. You'll still get in the room if you show up in the morning.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. These should all be pretty easy to get into. Like I said, somebody was asking me earlier about, like, what time do they need to get there for Prison Break and 24 Legacy. Like, show up 30 minutes before. You'll be able to walk right in.
I'm not sure there's crossover too much there, so I think a lot of Supernatural fans may leave.
Right.
Yeah.
So that should be fine. I wanted to note, Jim in the Q&A says, I think Martin Freeman might be there since he is married to Amanda Abington. So it's possible that they just didn't announce, you know, Sherlock and Watson. Maybe I wasn't sure that Martin Freeman is maybe filming something. That's why he wasn't announced. But it's possible they just held off both the names so that there's not a big rush.
Well, and who knows? Maybe he's also there for Marvel. Who knows? So maybe they couldn't announce him either. Don't know.
Yeah, I mean, some of these studios may have, they may tell them that they can't put announcements for certain people because they want to keep the secrecy, which is probably what's going on with Benedict.
Yeah.
All right.
I think so too. So what's going on in the next biggest room of the day? Because again, Ballroom 20, Indigo, and Horton are all closed on Sunday.
And that means it's 6 BCF. And happening in that room, it's another short day because of, well, it's another shorter day. There's 2 hours less of day. The first one is 10 a.m., the world premiere of DC Superhero Girls, Hero of the Year. And this is the new DVD for the animated feature coming out. Looks like it's going to have Gray Griffin, Tara Strong, Anais Fairweather, Jennifer Coyle, Shay Fontana, and the author Lisa Yee, and the host, DCI All Access host Tiffany Smith, will moderate. Everyone in attendance will receive a special DC Superhero Girls gift, courtesy of WB Consumer Products. So it looks like we're going to get, are we getting a screening?
I think so. Didn't it say that? Didn't it say they're showing the film?
World premiere, yeah. So there you go. Screening and panel. It's lasting for 2 hours, so you're going to get a decent panel because it's probably only about an 80 or 90-minute movie.
Yeah.
So you're going to get a half-hour panel and a free gift, which is pretty cool.
And what do you think that free gift is going to be, James?
I don't know. What do we think it's going to be?
Oh, you were just joking earlier that it was going to be a student ID because all the dolls come with a free student ID. Yeah.
Actually, you know that they just showed up recently with a cape, and on the packaging it says, "Will you get the golden cape?" And all you have to do is just turn the packaging and look at the bottom. You can see whether it's gold or not. It's not like it's a secret or anything. So they're like playing up, you know, is it a, oh my God, you got the gold one? No, just look, you get the gold one. So anyway, cape or ID, one of the two. Actually, it'll probably be way cooler than that. So at 12:15, we have the world premiere of Batman Unlimited: Mech vs. Mutants. So if your thing is cartoons, here's your thing. In attendance will be Roger Craig Smith, Will Friedle, Chris Diamantopoulos, Dana Snyder, John DiMaggio, and Kurt Sita. So again, another premiere, another panel, and another DVD, whatever format you want, coming out later this year. And then at 2 p.m. is Anything Goes with John Barrowman, and that is almost literal. He does kind of refrain himself in the Comic-Con crowd because there are kids in attendance, but it's basically a Q&A with John Barrowman, and he tells stories, and it's awesome. And then at 3:15 is the annual closing show, Buffy Musical, Once More with Feeling, an interactive Whedon musical. The folks from Whedonopolis host this, and this year they will have Juliet Lando in attendance and a surprise guest. I think they also hand out a little goodie bag for you to fulfill the interactive part of the panel name, so you can sing along and play along and such on this particular panel. And that is it for the room.
And then over in 6A, do we want to talk about anything about the turnover in that room? I mean, I think it's going to be pretty easy to get into all of those, don't you?
Barrowman will get pretty crowded. Yeah,
that's true. And I feel like, isn't this a room reduction? Because I feel like that's been an Indigo the last couple of years.
It was, I think, last year or 2 years ago, Barrowman was in Indigo when I went. And also the Buffy musical, I think, has been all the way up in Ballroom 20 and such before. But this room's 2000, so I think you'll be fine. I think you'll be fine if you want to go to the Buffy musical. It'll be crowded, but I think you'll be able to get in even if you just show up a few minutes before.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay, over in 6A, we also have a Pretty Light Day. At 10:15, we have Fantastic Fans and Where to Find Them. This is basically the annual Harry Potter fan panel where they're just going to talk about everything that's going on in Harry Potter, from the new film to the play to anything else. At 11:30 is the second Cartoon Voices panel of the week, which once again is hosted by Mark Evanier, and it'll have voice talents including D. Bradley Baker, Vicki Lewis, Fred Tatasciore, didn't say that right, Trevor Duvall, and Debbie Derryberry. So again, these are always a lot of fun. Highly recommend these. At 1 p.m., we have Sailor Moon from Viz Media. It's mostly they're going to be talking about the series coming to Blu-ray, but they'll also have some news about the all-new series Sailor Moon Crystal. And then at 2:15 is Starship Smackdown, which I've never been to, but you've been to, right, James?
I actually haven't.
You haven't?
No, and I just haven't been able to make it.
Okay. Well, it's basically like Star Wars versus Star Trek, and they have superfan, semi-famous people just kind of discussing like which is better and all that. It's got people like Jose Molina, Ashley E. Miller. It's got some decent names on it, but I've always heard good things. So that is a 2-hour panel from 2:15 to 4:15. Again, I don't feel like any of these are going to be too bad to get into. I think of these, Sailor Moon is probably going to be the most crowded, but I don't even know that I would say that that would fill up. So
SmackDown will be crowded. That does tend to fill up.
Okay. Well.
From what I recall seeing of video of the room, it looked pretty packed.
Okay. Well, there you go. So maybe you plan on showing up like 30 minutes early for Sailor Moon and Starship Smackdown?
Right.
Okay. There you go.
And finally,
7AB.
AB.
Which, in case you had forgotten, has a room capacity of 480 people. And if you are looking for these room capacities, just do a search for the term on the ublog, and there Kerry has a great list up to help you plan your schedule. So in 7AB starts at 10 on Sunday. With IndieWire, Weirdmageddon presents a farewell to Disney's Gravity Falls. It's just TBA in the schedule, so we don't know much about it. And I don't know much about Gravity Falls other than I see commercials for it during Star Wars Rebels.
Well, but it's over, and I know that Alex Hurst said like they weren't gonna have a panel this year because again, it's over. So it's really interesting. I don't know what to make of that at all.
Huh. So hopefully that to be announced will get filled in as we head towards the convention for those fans. 11 is Spotlight on Matt Fraction, moderated by David Brothers, about his career. That's what the spotlights are. 12 is Skybound Comics, with editor John Moisen and creators and artists, whoop, I lost it. 1, Gideon from Horizon, Sean Martinborough of Thief of Thieves, Brandon Thomas also from Horizon, and Josh Williamson, discussing all their work in the comics industry as a whole. 1 is Lego, I'm not sure if it's Ninjago or Ninjago.
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 Like Masters of Spin Jitsu. Showrunner Tommy Andresen, joined by writers, and it's a large panel. Voice actors as well, and moderated by their marketing director, Brian Bowler, of the Cartoon Network series. So kind of what I'm seeing so far is there's going to be a lot of turnover. I don't see much connection. So I think this, even though it's a smaller room, I think you guys will be able to get into them pretty easily if these are ones that interest you. So at 2, back to comics with Image Comics, Tomorrow's Comics Today, and it's Brian Lee O'Malley, Leslie Hung from Snot Girl, Jamie McKelvey from The Wicked and the Divine, Brandon Thomas from Horizon, and Jim Zub from Wayward, talking about their books and the comics process. At 3 is the Spotlight on Keith Knight, and he's joined by David F. Walker, just talking about his humble beginnings at Comic-Con. So these spotlights, they're the special guests, correct, guys?
Yes.
Special guests of Comic-Con, these
Yes.
spotlight shows, yeah. And the last panel in the day is Markiplier Comics and More, Keenspot Red Giant 2016, which is apparently their 16th annual Comic-Con panel, so they've been here a while. It's YouTube superstar Markiplier, if I'm saying it correctly, joined by creators from his comic series. So that wraps up the day in 7AB.
Well, before we take questions, let's go ahead and do our dark horses. And James, since you went last time, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. And I actually have one, which I need to go find again. I know which one it is. I just want to see it and read it. So we mentioned this in our highlights podcast or post earlier today, but I wanted to pay special attention to the Rube Goldberg Inventive Cartoon Genius panel in 29AB at 10 a.m. And this is his granddaughter, Jennifer George, Charles Coachman, the editorial director of Abrams Comics Arts, and Sergio Aragonis, and some special panelists who knew Rube or were inspired by his work will be there to share his work over the years and see home movies, rare, never-before-seen images from the family archives, including the very first published drawings from his high school newspaper. And this is, obviously, if you know the Rube Goldberg machine, it's overly complicated machines to do a very simple task. And I think it's just awesome that they're doing a panel to celebrate his life.
That is cool. Kim, do you want to tell us what yours is?
Let me unmute myself. I had, what stuck out to me was the Cult of Adult Comic Books, coloring books, at 11:30 in room 8. And everyone who attends gets free coloring pages, and I would hope that you can color during this panel.
I hope so too. It is pretty cool.
What are you doing there?
Exactly.
And then I also wanted to note the Animaniacs live, and I didn't have it open, which is 3 p.m. on Sunday in 6D&E. And what's the room capacity on that? 884. So that's not too small, but I can imagine that being a huge panel.
I think that one will definitely fill up. I mean, it's Animaniacs, and
got a lot
it's
of
a
the
pretty
voice.
big deal.
They're
And
going
they'll be singing.
they're singing live.
Yeah,
And the cast of Animaniacs is there to perform.
Cannot find it.
exactly.
It's gonna be
Awesome.
Yeah, it's super awesome. My dark horse panel is I wanted to point out that the Lego Dimensions panel over in 6DE is giving everyone a limited edition Lego Green Arrow minifigure. And not only that, but it'll also have some voice cast, and basically they'll be talking about the game. So that's pretty cool.
Yep. So that
Yeah.
means we answered just a second ago. Stargirl11 asked about the animating slide panel. So we answered that one. Yes, you're probably going to need to get there a little early. Don't just assume it's a walk-in. If you're really worried about it, get there about an hour early, I think. Just sit through one panel. I think you should be okay. But keep an eye on things because you never know.
It's true, and let's not forget that like the Muppets last year had a line out the door, so I feel like Animaniacs may kind of be that panel this year.
Right.
So truthfully, if it was me, I would show up 2 hours early for Animaniacs.
Okay.
Just saying.
Any other questions? Let's see. I know I had a couple on Twitter. So do we know when the line starts moving inside for Indigo? Is it just based on when the panels are starting?
It's basically on when the panels are starting. They typically let everybody in, I feel like, 30 minutes early, like before the first panel. It's not super early, but it's not a bad wait.
Right.
Part of it's inside.
30
so.
minutes, maybe 60 minutes if they actually have the room ready. It's typically because they're still doing all the last-minute tech checks and things like that. So,
Yeah.
and we also don't have to fill 6,000 people in like Hall H who lets in so early. But
Mike Nelson pointed out that Neil Gaiman's new book just came out at Dark Horse, so he could be on the 35th anniversary panel on Sunday, as well as Margaret Atwood. Very true. The weird thing about Neil Gaiman, though, is, again, the Starz press release listed him as being in town and on the American Gods panel, but every subsequent panel announcement through CCI has not listed Neil Gaiman. In fact, there's even on Saturday like an overview of 3 upcoming projects of his, and it lists basically everyone but Neil Gaiman as being on the panel. So it's like, here's the catch-up with 3 Neil Gaiman projects without Neil Gaiman. So is he not coming anymore? I don't know.
Don't
know.
On Twitter, we have the question from 2TKC69 who asked, have any of you attended Comic-Con Talkback? Is it a good open dialogue? I haven't attended Comic-Cons. I have attended WonderCons. But yes,
Kim
it
has.
is a good open dialogue. You line up, you ask your question or give your comment to John Rogers, the president of Comic-Con, and he will respond to you in the best manner possible that he can.
It's basically think of every town hall scene on Parks and Rec, and that is what Talkback is.
Yes.
Complete with some nice people and some angry people.
Right. That's what it is.
That's what it is. It's basically town hall for Comic-Con. I don't see any other questions in our Q&A. Anything else on Twitter?
No. I mean, Mike did mention that there's no Henson panel on Sunday, which, yes, there isn't, but there's 3 other panels that have Henson, well, 2 other panels that are Henson-related, celebrating the publishing world of Jim Henson on Thursday and the Dark Crystal panel on Friday. Not quite Henson panels as far as, an overall world, but they definitely have some.
Yeah. So
that seems to be about it on questions, unless anyone wants to ask one really quickly. I'm checking.
Do we want to talk just kind of in broad strokes about what we think of this year's panel schedule?
Yeah,
Is
sure.
Is it better than last year? Is it the same as last year, just different? Is it worse? What do we think?
I think, depending on what you're going for, I would assume that everyone notices that there's a distinct lack of a lot of studio presence. As far as movies are concerned, TV
I feel like even on the TV side, though, because like I said, I feel like everybody's just bringing less.
it's a little bit less, but it's not a lot on the TV side. You can definitely see the difference on the movie side. But the TV side is slightly less, not quite as bad. So, I mean, for those who complain about Hollywood taking over, here's your shot to go prove everyone wrong and see. Look at all of these comics and other panels that are happening, because there's still a ton of other stuff. There are hundreds of comic panels, hundreds.
And there's still quite a few conflicts for, looking at the schedule for people that want a certain thing. It's nice in some ways, though, that there's less, because it gives you an opportunity to maybe go to these like dark horse panels that you might not normally go to. And I always recommend pick a random small room panel and go to that panel, or a few during the weekend. And they're so much fun, and it's so interesting to just be in this room with just a few hundred others rather than the Hall H's.
Right. Exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, it's not a bad schedule. There's a lot of really good stuff. I just feel like it's a little bit lighter than previous years, and I think most people would agree with that. So.
Yeah, and and depending on how you're looking at it.
But
there's still a lot of good stuff. I mean, it is less. It is less. Come on. You can't look at it and think that there's the same. But it's only in the TV and movie side. There's still the same stuff in comics and everything else. So, I mean, if like I said, if your main complaint is that Hollywood has taken over Comic-Con, well, you're getting your wish. There's less Hollywood now.
it's true.
Still in the entirety of the off-sites, and now Sci-Fi and Entertainment Weekly and Comic-Con HQ have all moved in to do off-site broadcasting events, which is all Hollywood. So
It's true. So, truthfully, though, what I think this means is basically every day except Saturday is going to be a whole lot more crowded on the show floor. So, if you're not going to Hall H on Saturday, I would head to the show floor.
that sounds like a good day to go.
Yeah, it sounds like a great day to go. And there will be other stuff, though, that draws people away. There's a ton of offsites that still have yet to be announced. Like, we know nothing really about Nerd HQ right now. The Game of Thrones offsite, which is always huge. All we know is that it's happening. We don't know, details. So all of that stuff will also draw some people away.
In the Petco zone, because they're so busy with the All-Star game this weekend and early next week. So we have no info.
Yeah, so we are a long, long way away from being done with Comic-Con announcements.
Right.
This is by no means the end.
So keep an eye on the site as we write article after article of all the announcements as they are coming fast and furious, and everyone's like, oh, crap, it's in 10 days. We have to get some information out.
I'm actually going to answer this one. Mike Nelson says, who do you think Nerd HQ will have on their conversations for he said cure, but he means cause, with so few big movie names announced? I thought even before they announced Kong Skull Island that Nerd HQ kind of teased that Hiddleston was going to be back, because they tweeted a photo of him and tagged it as Nerd HQ, and I think they were they put it as a look back, but I was very much like, that's suspect. So I think that may be there this year, or he will be there this year. Beyond that, though, for the big movies, I don't know. I really don't know.
Right, and also, considering that Mr. Robot had a Nerd HQ without a panel, some people may actually show up just for Nerd HQ, like they have in the past. Well, you never know. It can happen. We do have a question on Twitter from Courtney Glassman. Do you know the procedures for the ADA line for Hall H? When can they first start to line up on Friday, and do they have wristbands? Yes, and yes, we do know. The ADA line basically runs as a separate line, but with all of the same rules. You can't line up before a certain point, and they will let you know what that is, and they do have their own wristbands, and therefore they won't get in at the same time as each. So they'll let in the A ADA line, then they'll let in the A Hall H main line, then they'll let in the B ADA line, and then the B of, so they'll do it in sections, like they've done the last few years before the wristbands. So just be aware that a lot of people do line up in that line and keep an eye on it. It gets just as crowded in its own way as the main Hall H line. So, but those people do take care of themselves. It's a separate group that has its own little thing going on, separate from the main line. So there's specific security people who run that line, and if you have any questions, they're usually there the entire weekend. So you can probably go find them on Thursday and ask them some questions to be ready in time for Saturday. So I think that hopefully answers the question. And do we have anything else? Oh, the show floor being more attended is great for small press, according to Committed Comics. Yes, that is definitely true. More people out on the floor getting spread out into all the areas who may not normally go on the floor and see some of the things like small press. So go visit small press, people.
It's true.
Just walk through. Go look around.
It's very true. And I wanted to answer one more question. So Sean asked, do you think we can expect any non-Marvel Disney movies to have trailers debut at Comic-Con this year? Sean, no. Walt Disney Studios is the only panel that they are officially bringing is that the Art of Moana panel that's on, is it Thursday?
Yeah, it's on Thursday.
It's on Thursday. So no, I don't think I know exactly what you're asking me, Sean. Unfortunately, I just don't think there's going to be anything for Pirates of the Caribbean this year. The Marvel Studios panel stuff is always completely separate from Walt Disney Studios. It's not like you go to that panel and they're going to show you like something upcoming for something not Marvel. So yeah, unfortunately, Sean, there's just not going to be Pirates. I'm really sorry. I know you were hoping very much for that, and I know you've been asking me that question since like October, but it's just not going to happen, buddy.
Yeah, and actually I want to take a second to go into that about Disney and what this clearly indicates as going forward in the future for their Comic-Con appearances. At this point, because Disney Studios themselves, and then we're talking just Disney Studios, not Marvel, not any other branch, Lucasfilm, they have not shown up at Comic-Con for years. They are basically wholly committed to D23 and only D23 every 2 years at this point. That's basically the indication that they're giving. That may change, but it will be the exception, not the rule from this point on. You can also assume, based on what happened for the last 4 years, that Marvel will only be showing up every 2 years to Comic-Con. And that is even clearer when you see that D23 move to the week before Comic-Con next year. Marvel will not be showing up anymore in D23 years. And also what is clear for Lucasfilm, with Rogue One not showing up this year and Celebration being the week before, you can expect Celebration to be the only place to see Star Wars panels. I would assume mostly from here on out, but I would also expect maybe the main episodes to show up at Comic-Con, because there is definitely a history between Star Wars and Comic-Con. I would think that they will do some panels, but it only when it really makes sense as in a PR marketing kind of way. Again, D23 is where it's at. Star Wars Celebration is where it's at from now on. If you want those panels, you go to those conventions. Comic-Con will not have them as much anymore. So next year, if you want to see Marvel and you have a choice, I say pick D23 because you're about 100% chance of seeing Marvel stuff there, and probably about a 1% chance of seeing it at Comic-Con.
Yeah, and I mean, we tried to be more optimistic than most people, but clearly we were wrong this year on Star Wars showing up. So who knows? Who knows what they're thinking? I do think it's possible that we could just switch off every other year. So maybe next year we get Star Wars, the year after we get Marvel, and that way, like, they are still keeping some stuff for themselves. I don't know, but we'll just have to see what happens next year. But I would not assume that either of those are a lock anymore.
Right. Yeah, I think it's every other year at best, and for sure Marvel I think will show up every other year. I think that's what they've done now for, is it 5? I think no, it's since 2010. That's what they've been doing. 2011 was the first year they skipped for D23, and they've been doing it every year, every other year since. So I think that's basically the pattern at this point.
They came in 2013.
Did they?
Yeah, that was the year we got Hiddleston.
Oh, well, there you go.
So
We have a D23 that 23 year, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. Oh, okay.
There went Kim. Well, that's okay. We're pretty much over at this point anyway. Did we have any more last-minute questions?
Stargirl asked again about the ADA line having its own next day line. That thing, I think we'll find out for sure when they release the release wristband rules. So
sometime this week.
Right, just wait for that. And I think
Yeah.
that's it.
Yep. All right. Well, thank all of you for tuning in. I'm just checking. No more questions. All right. Don't forget about Enchantment Under the SDCC. It's back at the Analog this bar in a week and a half. Tickets are now sold out. We have so many awesome sponsors this year. We could not be more excited. You guys are going to get some awesome stuff and an insane amount of raffle prizes. Like, at this point, I'm not even sure how we're going to get it all to the venue. We are teaming up with Uber for $20 off your first ride. You can use the code SDCCUblog.
Kim's back.
There she is.
Hi, sorry.
You're fine. We're just doing the wrap up now, so you can sign up for our newsletter. The link is in the show notes. Are you in the outline, Kim?
And there are lots and lots of news on the under the tens column, which is that twice daily yet?
Getting there. Yeah, it's getting
Almost.
there. I think we have enough for two today, actually. So thank you all for joining us, and we'll continue to answer questions as we can. And don't forget, the next and final podcast before Comic-Con is this Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time, and so we'll hope you join us for that, and we'll schedule the wrap-up show after Comic-Con soon. So we'll announce that as well. Anyway, Kim, where can we find more of your work on the internet?
I am outside Comic-Con on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and probably other places. And this is Hodor right here in the background for those watching. He's the one that attacked me earlier.
Particularly unimpressed with all of the goings-on around Comic-Con.
He's very much unimpressed. Kerry, where can we find more of your work on the interweb?
You can find my work on the interweb on Twitter at Kerry Dixon. James, where can we find more of your work on the internet?
You can find me everywhere at Dan Riegel, and you can also check out geekshotphoto.com for photography links, on social media links for my wife and I. And we have been remiss in mentioning that Beth, my wife, is the producer of the podcast and does all of the work getting it to you online, and does all of the behind-the-scenes stuff, including being a behind-the-scenes voice. So thank you, Beth.
Thank you, Disembodied Voice.
We love you, Disembodied Voice.
I love you too.
Behind the veil.
From the beyond.
Okay.
We are on iTunes. If you'd like to subscribe, the links are up on the blog, or search for SDConCast. If you like what you've heard so far, please review us. We're also on Stitcher Radio. The link is in the show notes, and I forgot to say this earlier. As a quick reminder, we all have one final podcast before the show, so you can join us Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time, just like normal, where we will be talking about all the last-minute news and answering all of your last-minute questions.
And if you want to get a hold of us, you can send us an email at sdcomiccon.blog@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/sdconblog, or tweet us at sd_comic_con. Thank you all for listening, and everybody,
Go shawarma.
Go shawarma.
We're never getting...
Hodor.